Welcome to the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork. I can't wait for my guest to be on the show, so I want to introduce her. Oh, there we go. Hold on one second, everybody. There we go. Welcome, you guys, to TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with real kinky people. My guest is so extraordinary. I am just so excited about introducing to her. She has over 15 years experience as a relationship, sexuality, health education, spirituality, life counselor for love relationships that are including both alternative and vanilla lifestyles. It has included such wonderful couples and individuals that she's been training for years and teaching, and she conducts these awesome workshop classes, and I'm so excited. I'm going to say her name wrong, and then she's just going to have to spank me or have, a dominant if she has one. I don't even know if she has a dominant. I'm going to see if he will have to spank me. So my guest for this evening is Francesca Gentille. I did it wrong, didn't I?
Yes, it's Francesca Gentille.
Gentile.
It's Italian.
Oh, you speak Italian? Do you speak Italian?
Un poco.
Just a little bit?
Yes, just a little bit.
That would really turn me on.
Ciao, bella. Come sta?
All I know is Stugats. So you have quite an extraordinary. You've had quite an extraordinary. You are having such an extraordinary life. I mean, you live. What area do you live in? Where do you live? And I do know, but I have to ask this question.
I live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
So, how did you get involved in BDSM?
Well, how I got involved is kind of different than a lot of the stories that I hear from people, in that I have been an initiated shaman for 30 years. And so I've been following this real spiritual path, and you could almost say my kink is the sacred. And I've been studying that and deepening my ability to listen to, you could say, higher self or deep intuition or gut truth or whatever that is, and have been doing a lot with sacred Eros and Tantra. Well, one day I was designing a new class with one of my co-teachers, and we had taught 9-session class on healing with sacred Eros, and then we taught a 7-session class on sex magic. And she said, "What's next, Francesca?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to teach Dark Eros, the temple of power and surrender." And she said, "Okay." And I thought, where was that coming from? What just happened? And we started to design the class together, and I literally started to get downloads around how the tools and techniques and toys of kink were used in ancient times, 20,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, for ritual, for initiation, for the ordeal path, for transformation, for healing. And I thought,
is this is pre de Sade, Marquis de Sade?
Yes, this would be ancient Egypt. This would be the Mesopotamians. This would be the Sumerians. This would be in very, very ancient times. Also, it's around the world in sacred circles. In today, in Bali and places like that, they have this wavy long knife, and they go through rituals where they pierce themselves in this knife. And we have, in the Native Americans, we have the Native American sun dance, where they pierce their pectorals and they dance around the pole until dawn. And so there's these spiritual traditions that are actually current, but there's also roots that go back into our more indigenous ancestors, into our more shamanic ancestors, these same traditions. So way before de Sade, I think de Sade was one of the many people who were saying these tools and techniques could just be used for fun. I mean, we could just have a good time with these. We don't really have to do dance until dawn or do a ritual that that transforms us. We could just have sexy fun times, which is also good. And but what's really, I would say, my turn on is wholeness. Like when I actually switch, and I do in public, I'm mostly in a dominant role. And if someone says, Francesca, or priestess, in the kink scene I'm called priestess, would you like to, would you would you don my scene? Would you take me there? Would you do something with me? And we negotiate. I'm listening, do they want to be flogged or spanked or tied up or, said certain things, but I'm really listening for what in here is going to support their wholeness. What can we move through? What can we break through? What can we reclaim? What can we release shame from? So that after this time together, there's something that actually shifts in you, and there's something that you can integrate that has you have a better life all over the place. So kind of getting back in a way, when I had this sense that I was supposed to do this, I ended up finding this really handsome man, that was very charismatic and alluring, and I started to date him because he was a very interesting person. And then he said to me at one date, he said, "You don't need to be kinky, but you need to know that I am."
And this is when you started?
This is actually when I started, and this kind of light bulb went off, and I thought, oh my goodness, this man is my doorway. This man is my portal. And we shared a spiritual path. And within a few weeks, we were at a temple together where we were staying overnight. And I got one of these downloads. I know this sounds wild, I got one of these downloads that said, "Francesca, kneel by the bed and tell him this." So it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I knelt by the bed. I tapped him on the shoulder. He's like, What is it? And I said, I have a gift for you. And he said, "Can't it wait?" And I said, "I don't think so." And so he sat up, and I said, "I want to offer myself to you in unconditional love, service, and devotion, heart, body, mind, spirit, and Eros." And he said, "Do you want my collar?" And I said, "I don't know, what's that?"
Oh my God.
And then I meditated. I just sat and meditated for a few minutes, and I felt that I got a message that said, "Say yes." So I said, "Yes, I want your collar." And that's actually how I came into Kink.
Okay, message. Okay. You guys, okay, we have some people that are in the chat room. We've got quite a few people that are watching the shows. I mean, quite a few. We have little T that's in the chat room, and we have, is it Cretic Long? Cretic is in the chat room, and Justin is in the chat room. Welcome to TSR Network. We have people that are watching the show. If you're not into the chat room, come to TSRnetwork.com and come in the chat room, and we're going to have, I think this is going to be, okay, all right. Messages. Okay. Spirit guides, correct?
I don't necessarily believe that there's one true right and only way to talk about how we get information. I mean, some people call it, I have a gut instinct, and I always know what to do. This gut instinct tells me. Some people say I have a good intuition. Some people say, I get messages. Sometimes I almost hear it like in my head, or some people will say I almost get a picture between sleeping and waking. And, sometimes they call them spirit guides, sometimes they call it a higher self, sometimes they might call it, getting downloads from the spirits. And, I don't know. I don't know if we've researched enough to know exactly what it is. But I know that there's something that when we tune into it really starts to guide us, who to talk to, what to pursue in our lives, what our life purpose is. If you have that, right? You have something like that.
Okay, I have a history of, I studied metaphysics. I met a woman who introduced me to my spirit guide, and my spirit guide did not leave me alone. When that spirit guide discovered me, they did not leave me alone. I was channeling everybody else, and they'd walk into my sphere of my, just the energy around me, and their spirit guides would talk to me. And I had to shut them all out because I never, ever, ever, I could not rest. All I ever heard was all those voices, and I'm not schizophrenic. And so I slowly lost all of that. I think that there was more for me to do in this world because I was so up in the clouds. I was 3.5 years in a meditative state.
Wow.
And it was it was the most peaceful place I've ever been in my entire life. But I still needed to do things in this life. And spirituality and my spirit guides are very important. But I didn't hear from them for a very long time. And last year, in January, they started coming back. And I've been fighting them because I know they're going to take me on a different road. And I don't know if I'm ready for it. I wish you lived here.
I'm not far. I'll come visit. And
yes.
You know, and I think you bring up a really great point, is that we don't want to be so in the clouds that we can't live in a day-to-day life. And yet, to me, I don't want to be so grounded, so just, you know, here every day. Am I making money? Am I getting fucked? Am I fucking somebody? You know, I don't want to be so just here now that I'm not open to some of these beautiful information, you know, spontaneity, synchrodestiny, Deepak Chopra calls it. You know, that when I'm open to this other level, you know, I can just have these incredible experiences walking down the street and suddenly feel like I need to talk to this person and meet this person, and suddenly they take me to this other place. And I find it especially easy to do when I'm traveling. It's like there's an energy when I'm traveling that I'm not attached to doing the laundry or doing the bills or whatever I think I need to do in my day-to-day. So I'm a little less grounded almost by default. And then it's then this opening comes, this flow comes. But it can happen at a dungeon. It definitely can happen at a play party.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with you. When I go into my Dom space, I leave the room. The only thing that exists is the person that I'm playing with, and I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. It's like I'm in this bubble. And then when I come out of it, and it gets very erotic, and it's intense, and it's my Dom space where I go. I mean, it's so spiritual for me.
You know, what's interesting is when I came into Kink, I had already been, you know, a shaman, a priestess for, you know, 30 years, so I wasn't going to leave it behind to come into Kink. And I wondered if there was anyone else like me. So I talked to my master, my dominant, and he said, "Oh, Francesca, the world is not ready for you. The world is not ready for this." But I felt so, in a way, so lonely, and I decided to test the water. So here I'd be at a dungeon, I'd be at a play party, and, you know, maybe I'd be sitting down for a moment, and somebody might come down and sit next to me, you know, near the chip and dip table or whatever, and they'd say hi, I'd say hi, and I would turn to them and I'd say, "So, do you practice sacred kink?" And they'd look at me. You know, and one of two things would happen. Either they would lean in and go and really somehow be excited by what I just said, or they'd lean back and you know, walk away slowly. But I was surprised by how many people, almost like it was a dirty little secret, would say to me, they'd say, "Priestess, I feel energy. I feel an energy when I'm in a scene with my partner or with this person. It transports us. I feel this energy move through me." And especially the dominants might say, "I feel it move through me and to my submissive and through my submissive." And I was, you know, really delighted by this like dirty little secret that people started to reveal, that they actually felt something and that they actually knew that it was spiritual. And then I started a Kinky Spirituality Munch. And it's been packed. It's just been packed with people of all different, you know, religious, spiritual backgrounds. And we're exploring together, you know, what is it? You know, what is it? How does it move through us? How do we call it in? How do we enhance it? How do we, you know, celebrate it? What are we discovering? It's like we're the researchers together of this phenomena that's there.
Well, I was in EMSO. I went to EMSO up in San Francisco. I was there, and a young girl asked me to play with her. And I call it, I don't do drive-bys. I says no, because I don't do a lot of play unless I know them, because of the energy that people put out and that I put out. And so we ended up playing, and I started playing with her, and I looked at her, and I says, all of a sudden her grandmother came in the dungeon, the spirit, and I said, "I'm not supposed to play with you." I says, and her grandmother spoke, and I said, "What I'm supposed to do is do a chakra healing on you. You're blocked, and your grandmother wants," and I said a few things, and she goes, "Oh my God, that's exactly like my grandmother." and it was so strange. But we have a question in the chat room.
Okay.
Okay. Little T said, do you think it's possible your spirit guides don't leave you but allow you to journey of your own instinct, which actually comes from the spirit guide? And then we also have Micah that has come into the chat room. Welcome, and lots of people are watching. If you're not in the chat room, please come on in. Okay, go ahead.
So does our spirit guide, I think our spirit guides, so, the Catholics, I was raised Catholic, we call them a guardian angel, that there's a guardian angel that's with us from birth. And some people might call it spirit guides or something else. And I think they're always with us. And I think that life is kind of a dance between free will and destiny. And that, just because a friend might say, priestess, you need to do this, or my partner might say, priestess, you need to do that, doesn't mean I'm actually going to do it. And it's similar to the information that we get from, what we might call a spirit guide or anything else. We still have free will. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah, I believe we do too. I shut them off. I had to. I had to make money and raise a child. I had to, but I had not a clue that we would have this conversation. This is such a wonderful surprise to me. I am just, you can see my face. I mean, little T knows me well. She's a wonderful friend and a great, supporter of TSR Network. She's probably looking at my face going, Rev Mel is in heaven right now.
and I also want to welcome, I'm pretty sure that Mike is my beloved, is my partner, who's joined us. So I really want to appreciate him for coming on the show with us. And definitely, if you have any questions, sweetheart, feel free, or comments. I'm sure you'd have comments that you wish to share. But yeah, there's something very exciting that I think a lot of us are starting to tune into on another level, is that, in a sense, every time we're in front of another human being, and this could be the grocery store, this could be the cross, this could be the bedroom, every time we're in front of another human being, there's an opportunity to actually make a positive difference. And, as long as we're spending some time, and it could be sexy time, it could be naughty time, it could be whatever time, there's also an opportunity to bless a soul, to heal a life. And I think that that's what you're saying, is that we can tune in to this voice, and it'll say things, I've had that same feeling where there's something that I'm meant to tell this person, or there's something that I'm meant to do with this person that maybe isn't traditional for the dungeon space. But it could be as simple as there was a submissive that was a pickup play for me at a party, and we started out negotiating, stingy or thuddy, the usual, and then I have 4 questions that I love to share to just start to get us a little deeper. And one question is, where in your body do you feel the strongest right now? If we thought about it, where in our body do we feel the strongest, the most vibrant? Where in our body do we feel the weakest or the most vulnerable? And then where in our lives do we feel the most celebratory? And where in our lives do we feel the most challenged?
Ooh.
And yeah, and if I ask these 4 simple questions to my pickup play, if somebody said there was nothing that they had to celebrate, that would tell me a lot. If someone said that that they had no challenges, that would tell me a lot. Where they said in their body, I did an evening taster once where I had probably 20, 30 people that I was doing these 4 questions with, and I was surprised by how many people, and this was a kink play party, how many people said that the place that was tender and vulnerable was their heart. And they didn't mean that they were going to have, a heart attack. Mm-hmm. They meant that their heart, the love in their heart, was hurting. And then I would ask them, do you want to work on healing what feels so tender? Do you want to work on kind of moving, expanding what feels so strong? Connecting the 2 of them, or something else. And people would tell me right away. Right away, they would have something that they could tell me, and right away, I could start working with them. Well, this one young lady, we had done all of this and the 4 questions, and as we were walking to the cross, she asked me if she should take off her clothes. And especially when I'm doing sexual healing, and this would be kinky sexual healing, or this would be non-kinky sexual healing, When I feel that sexual healing is what needs to happen, or emotional healing is what needs to happen, I will often put the authority back on the other person. I'm still holding the container, I'm still the dominant, but what I said to her was, I don't know. What kind of clothing do you think you should take off? And she said, I think I should take off everything except my panties, but I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I don't like my body. And that's when I said, aha, now I have the scene. Now I know the scene that I want to do with her. And then the entire scene, you know, whether we were spanking or flogging or whatever we were doing, it was layering in that sense of self-worth and self-love. So, you know, I would smack her bottom and she'd say, oh, my butt is jiggling. And I'd say, and isn't that sexy? And isn't that delicious? And I want you to breathe in how sexy your jiggly butt is. And I would just do this for every single thing that I was doing to her. And at the end, when we were doing aftercare, she turned to me and she said, my body's beautiful. And if people don't like my body, they don't need to play with me. And I said, yes, yes. And to me, that's the turn on. The turn on is getting, you know, you know, as you said, I need to clear your chakras. You know, whatever that download is, whatever that intuition is, that this thing, this way of playing with someone is really going to make a difference. That's the life force.
It does make a difference. And the chat room, let me tell you some of the comments in the chat room. Little T says, you're glowing, Rev Mel. Mike says, hello, darling. And Cedric said, he said, gave me the correct pronunciation of it. Thank you so much. I get that always wrong. He said, I was involved in the leadership program with Francesca a number of years ago. Question, do you have any insight regarding healing mother energy? I got a recent reading with that. I have been feeling blocked regarding allowing myself to really enjoy the feminine in my life. Thank you, Friedrich.
You know,
Cedric.
that healing mother energy, it's so huge for so many of us, male or female. And right now I've actually been working a lot with the masculine in terms of healing mother energy. And it goes a couple of ways, but often when I hear a man say there's something to heal, he's been shamed. There's something about his relatedness with his mother. Maybe she found him masturbating. Maybe she had just a very negative sexual, you know, when she would talk about sex or men, it was very negative. Maybe there was one of my men that I worked with that when he was a young, you know, teenager, you know, like 12 or so, his mother and father were breaking up, and his mother would climb into bed with him, you know, just as he was coming on to his adolescent sexuality, and she'd have this nightgown on, and she would hold him. It was very confusing, and so he would shame himself, like, for having erotic feelings around his mother. And, you know, this wounding, and sometimes it's that they've had neglectful mothers or abandoning mothers, so they have such a longing for the feminine, and not just the feminine, but really a longing for mother energy. And then they feel ashamed to say, I want mother energy in my life. So, you know, I think the way through, or what I noticed the way through, is the release of shame, and really having someone that you can play with, that you can talk with. You know, it's going to, you know, Rev Mel, that it will be different depending on the person and the moment and the scene. You know, sometimes it might be holding someone. Sometimes someone that I worked with, we went, kind of did a shamanic journey where we were visualizing his mother, and then I became his mother. And then when I was his mother, he asked if he could be held in my lap, and if he could, you know, suck at my breast. And there was, the energy of it actually was so beautiful. It might sound weird, but it was actually this beautiful, clear energy around this little spirit that needed to feel like he could come home. So, you know, there's not one right way to do it, but I would say find someone with whom you feel 100% safe, who your gut, you know, your higher self, whatever you want to call that, says this person could really hold this container for me. And you might need to cry. You might need to yell. You might need to say, fuck you. You might need to say, I need to be held. But there's something about being able to express yourself without shame and ultimately receive what it is that we're wanting. It's almost like a missing nutrient that was never there.
Do you think that there's so, I mean, you've been in the lifestyle for how long? In the BDSM lifestyle? Pardon?
5 years. Five.
Okay, 5 years. I have seen such an increase in diaper play, in children play. Not children. What do they call it?
Little.
Thank you. In little. I need some more chocolate. In little play. Do you think that that is I think it's a very healing thing for our community. It's like, in my opinion, that it lets people be able to release the child and to be able to heal that child. I mean, what is your opinion of it?
Well, before I ever was in kink, I would hear in the psychotherapeutic community, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. You know, I would just hear this concept. And also, before I was in kink, I was working with a therapist that said, oh, Francesca, you need to heal your inner child. What? And they would actually talk to me, and when I was upset, they'd say, I want you to turn around and find that little girl inside and give her a hug. And I swear the first several years that my therapist would say this, I would think in my head, fuck you, and I wouldn't do it. But one day, when I was upset, I turned around in the inside in my own head, and I saw this little girl, and she had her arms crossed, and she was very mad, and she wouldn't even talk to me because she felt abandoned by me. And you know, what I said to her was, you know, I know this is going to sound weird, little honey, but until this moment, and I might have been 40 at the time, until this moment, I didn't know you were still there. I thought I grew up. I thought you grew up with me. And I didn't know that you were still back there hurting from those years that were hurtful. And because when you were 2, I was 2. When you were 3, I was 3. When you were 4, I was 4. And I didn't know that you were there little and I had grown up. So I started working with my inner child and checking in with her and buying gifts for her and getting little stuffed animals for her before I ever did anything with kink. So when I came into kink and people said that they wanted to play with their littles and wanted to be their littles, I thought, well, they're already doing that in the psychotherapeutic community. So in a sense, what's the difference? You know, what's the difference except for in the kink community, we maybe have better outfits. You know, we get outfits for our littles and diapers for our littles and, you know, playpens for our littles. But, you know, it is when I host something called the Princess Pajama Fairy Tea Party. And everyone, male or female, who comes who's little gets to be a princess. And we all get tiaras and we all get wands and we all have tea. And when I talk to people, they say that. They say it's so healing. This is the childhood they never had. Now they get to feel safe. And when somebody is looking for a mommy or they're looking for a daddy, they really are looking for, you know, can we have it right this time?
Wow, I love that. I love that. I mean, it's just seeing so many people becoming so involved in the little community. We did a show on littles, and it was extraordinary. And sometimes I feel a little, I kind of like it to watch it, but sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable, and I don't know why, and that's why I haven't gotten involved in the little community, even as a parent or a child. There's something there that it's just like, that doesn't feel good to me, but I enjoy watching it, and I get the biggest kick out of it.
Well, I don't know if this is the truth, Rev Mel, at all, but you know, if it were me, there might be a part of me, and this can happen looking at groups of littles, is my little doesn't feel safe. My little girl inside is a very sensitive little being. And she'll look at, you know, she was hurt by other kids. She was made fun of by other kids. And the last thing I do is as an adult, you know, I grew out of that dangerous zone. The last thing I want to do as an adult is go back into a group of adult children who might hurt me, because I had that life already. So if it were me, there might be something in me that would be like, I don't know if I can really get close to this, but I don't know if that's what comes up for you.
Woo! I was a bullying victim as a child. My siblings all picked on me. Kids in the neighborhood, I would have groups of kids following me home, throwing rocks at me, throwing sticks at me, calling me names. I had a very bad speech impediment. I was severely dyslexic. The teachers told my parents that I was incapable of learning. I mean, it was a very rough childhood. In fact, I don't even have memory after my concussion about my childhood. So when I'm around that, it's like I don't want to let those walls down. I don't want to play with the other kids because you're dead on, because they might do what other kids did to me, and it would be so painful. You're good.
And not like this is a have to at all, but for me, the journey was to first find her for myself. It wasn't about anybody else. It wasn't about dressing up and going to a party. It was just about getting to know her for me and letting her know that I wanted to keep her safe and that I was interested in what colors she liked, or who she liked, or what she felt about the world. And I spent many years just having it be a very internal process. And it wasn't until that same master that I entered the kink community in a 24/7 master-slave relationship. I think some part of me likes to jump in at the deep end, and he also was my daddy. We realized that I had already been working on this little internal girl, and he had another slave that was a little girl. So we decided to try it. And he would say, well, are you sure you don't want to meet other littles? Are you sure you don't want to have parties? And eventually I said, okay, I would only want to meet other littles if they were nice, if they were kind, if they were well behaved, and then if they weren't, they'd have to leave. And he said, okay. And so I created a party that said, you can only come if you're a well-behaved little. And I can't say that I've had big parties. They've only been like 3 or 4 people, but they've been 3 or 4 really sweet, really loving, really kind little, inner littles. And that's been very healing for me, because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have that kind of kind little around me.
But we have a lot of people that are mean in the lifestyle, that aren't kind, that aren't considerate of other people. And I think people think that, I always talk about, walking in peace, love, and joy, and kindness and compassion. And people look at me as if I'm supposed to be this mean, sadistic, female dominant. I am sadistic. I like to give pain, but I also love to comfort and be kind. And people can't grasp that.
Well, let's separate a couple things out. Number one, there's a difference between dominant and domineering. So dominant, the chef is dominant in his kitchen. The surgeon is dominant in the surgery. The conductor is dominant in the orchestra. Being dominant doesn't mean you have to be cruel. Being dominant means you have confidence, competence, and authority. Confidence, competence, and authority. Now, you could do that in a very graceful way and a very kind way. You didn't even have to raise your voice, and everybody might listen to you. So we can be kind and still be the dominant because we have confidence, competence, and authority. Now, pain. Pain is a doorway. Pain is a portal. For some people, it's a portal to pleasure. For some people, it's a doorway to find out how strong they are, stronger than they ever knew. For some people, pain is a doorway to flight. It's that shamanic thing where they go into trances and they see visions. And so if I am this dominant, this graceful dominant, this gracious dominant, and someone comes to me with a longing to have that doorway through pain, okay, I think that's pretty divine.
I'm listening. They know I never ever really get speechless, and I'm just blown away by this conversation. I think I'm having an awesome time. It's like my brain is going, I'm learning. It's really important sometimes. I know the difference whether to continually talk or to be silent and to listen, because I find that when I'm silent and I listen is when I learn the most. When I do not have to be the center, all I have to do is be the person that is absorbing the information. And I don't function from a huge big ego. I don't have any need for it because I'm comfortable in my shoes and who I am. But I find that we have a lot of people that come into our community that okay, 50-50, same in the in vanilla world. Some of us are broken, and we don't come in fixed. And how do we get fixed? How do we fix someone that's come in broken?
I think that, there's a saying in psychotherapy, or it's a joke in psychotherapy that says, how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one. But the light bulb really has to want to change. And, and I think that in whether it's the non-kinky community or the kinky community, this is an interesting statistic that I learned when I was I worked at Kaiser Permanente for almost a decade in their health education department regionally. And I found out that 40% of us in the United States were raised in families or environments with severe emotional, physical, sexual, or spiritual abuse and trauma.
40%?
40%. That's practically every other person. Now, the statistic skews a little that more women have had the sexual trauma and more men have had the physical trauma. Emotional trauma, it's about equal. Spiritual trauma, it's about equal. And so given that that's 40%, that's practically every other person that we might play with at a party, that we might date, that we might walk next to in the grocery store. Practically every other person is carrying some suffering, some wounding from their past. Now, we cannot save them, we cannot change them, we cannot fix them, but we can collaborate with them to the extent that they're ready and they're willing and they're able. So for me, the key is to offer myself, to come out of the closet, to say, I am here to not only bring joy and pleasure or fun or pain or whatever that is, but I'm here to support wholeness. Now, when I come out of the closet, it's finally on the menu. People can't ask for, could I have a scene that would also, help me grieve my mother? Could I have a scene that would help me feel better about my body? Could I have a scene that would heal my sexuality? I mean, people don't even know that they could ask that if we don't let them know it's on the menu. So I think we need some new, those sheets that you can get online that say, do you like it stingy or thuddy, or do you like canes, or do you want to be choked, or do you want to, I think we need another list that allows us to say, would you like to work on your mother issues? Would you like to work on your father issues? Would you like to reclaim the sensuality of your body? Would you like to reclaim the power to know what you want? That to have a list that we can go, I could do that? You mean I could do that? Because if I saw it on that list, I'd probably want to check it. Yes, yes, I want that too.
This is like a Kodak moment, we have some statements and some questions and stuff in the chat room. We have one from Little T. She says, I agree with that. There are some not. Wait. I agree with there are some not so nice ones. From my view, some dominance in. I can't say that word. Inadequates, whatever that word is. Dominance. Remember, I'm dyslexic, for being harsh and kind of mean. I think they feel that they show any type of sensitivity, that their reputation being a dominant will be tarnished. Does this sound possible? Then the next statement is from Justin, says, I'm perfectly fine with littles, but I have listened to others compare them to, what, you know what the problem is? I got to tell you what the problem is tonight. I did not expect Francesca to be Francesca. And her energy is so strong, I can't even think. And I think this is what the problem is. She has power over me. So he thinks that it's people that molest children. I can't even think of the word. I have these blocks.
I think that pedophiles, pederasts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I want
Michael, in the chat room, do you also have mind blanks around Francesca?
And first of all, I just want to say, I don't believe that anybody really has power over anyone else unless we give it to it. Like, nobody can have power unless my power unless I give it to them. And but sometimes we do, and I feel that it's a resonance. It's a resonance. Like I look forward to having tea in person someday, and I feel like we would be great friends if we lived closer by. Uh, and I want to address that, dominant versus domineering, and that many people come into the scene, they're looking for something, connection, attention, a sense of feeling their power or having permission to let go and surrender or serve. We're looking for something. And when we get especially into the public scene, there is a lot of attention. I found that I preferred, with my ex-master, I preferred to play publicly because I could feel the energy and the attention that was coming toward me. Well, the dominant feels that. Even if you're in that bubble, as Rev Mel said, there's still this sense of the attention if you're having a scene that's drawing attention. And people in the scene, not all of them, but they crave this attention. And we don't have many good role models on how to get attention. So if people who are dominant try to get bigger, they try to get louder, they try to get more domineering because, we have a lot of tyrants in the world. And people who are submissive, we sometimes get more, we act out. Maybe we're going to be more bratty, or maybe we're going to be more sexy, or maybe we're going to be more, dramatic, emotional and dramatic. And we really want to be seen. It's a core human need to be seen and to be felt and to be heard. And I think the beginning is just to know that and hold that tenderly in our hearts and understand that underneath every bit of bad behavior is really a tender soul that's wanting to be seen, felt, and heard. So I think that's a piece. And when we get over to the children and the littles, they're not actually children. They're people that are over 18. So that whole pedophile thing, it's very interesting. When I've either been a mommy or when I've been a little, often the first thought is this a pedophilia? Am I going to feel like I really want to be intimate with children? At least in my experience, I would say no. I have a child. I've never felt that way towards my child. And when I'm the little, it's clear that this is not my actual father. My actual father, for whom it would be completely oogie if we did something sexual. I mean, really, ew. And it's more of an energy. It's almost like, this is it. Let's go back to psychotherapy. In psychotherapy, they have something called drama therapy. And when you're trained in drama therapy or family constellation therapy, you get people together and they role play. They role play, this is the mother and this is the child. And it's considered therapeutic and healthy and normal. And everybody knows that the person, on one level, this is not really the father. On one level, this is not really the child. But there's something about role playing it that helps us start to heal. That's why it's called drama therapy or family constellation therapy. And in kink, I feel that there's a lot of things that we do that we put under the framework of play, that if we just went a little bit deeper, we could actually see that this is therapeutic and that this has the potential to be deeply therapeutic. So if we think of it more as this is a therapeutic process that's fun, and we don't have to pay people very much to do it, maybe that we can release this fear that it's somehow a form of pedophilia.
Great. I have questions. I have statements and stuff in the chat room. There are lots of people that are watching. If you are not in the chat room, please go to TSRnetwork.com, go to live shows, come in and join the chat. Mike said these kinds of conversations are what initially drew me to Francesca. They don't make me blank, but they lead me into introspect. I love that. And Little T says, I'm not a little, just to clarify. Nothing wrong with them. But I am, and I'm not even anything but basically vanilla. I choose Little Taurus as my name because I'm not a very big girl. LOL, laughing out loud. Rev Mel knows this, but the others don't. And Justin, in the chat room, do you have submissives that you play littles with? I would like to know if Justin is Francesca, is Mike in the BDSM lifestyle?
Mike is in the BDSM lifestyle, and we switch. My beloved and I switch, and we're both.
Oh no, not a switch! No, just joking.
And we both have a tendency to be dominant in public, and to consider that being submissive is extremely tender, extremely raw, and requires a lot of respect and trust. And so we will switch in the bedroom and really feel this as a very, very deeply intimate experience between us. And we actually switch between adult-child too. That there are times when he's my daddy, times when I'm his mommy, times when we're both, romantic lovers, times where he's my dominant, times where I'm his dominant. I have an inner vampire. He really likes her. And we're still exploring. We're actually still exploring this. And I'd like to talk about this realm of the inner aspects. So imagine that inside, I don't know if anybody watches Doctor Who, where in Doctor Who there's this concept that this telephone booth called the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. So you're looking at a telephone booth, it looks like a telephone booth, but when you open the door, it's this huge spaceship. And when you go into the spaceship, you find that there's all these different levels, and and they're all huge, and it just keeps getting bigger. Well, imagine that we human beings are like that on the inside. The body is like the phone booth. It's a limited body, but on the inside, we're like a universe. On the inside, I invite us to think about this. We all have some kind of primal, whether we play with it in the scene or not. The primal is the part of us that kind of sniffs through life, like, not tasty, tasty, not tasty. And it just kind of goes through life doing that. We all have a part of us, most of us, especially in California, have something I would call the rebel teen. And the rebel teen is like, you're not the boss of me. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't have to believe it because you say it. And like we all have this part that kind of wants to push back. And then, I believe that most of us, whether that's hidden or not, have a part of us that actually would love to find, that amazing person, the one that could really see us, the one that could really love us, the one that could bring healing to some of those really deep wounded places inside, and that we have that longing. We may not believe we're ever going to find it, but we can have that. And I think we have a part of us that's wise. I often say the wisest part of you is the part that gives great advice to other people. And and many of us find it hard to listen to that same advice that's so good that when we give it to somebody else. So if we have this universe inside, on one level, we could be everything. I think this is where I access a queer mentality too. We could be male, we could be female, we could be young, we could be old. Now, imagine we have all these different inner aspects. They each make love differently. They each might want to have a different scene. So now when we start to unpack, well, who's inside? And not be afraid of this, not go, oh, I think I have these conflicting ideas and I hear these different things about I want to, I don't want to, I should, I shouldn't. Instead of being afraid of that inner diversity, if we actually embraced it, it can expand our lives and our sexuality and our play. And I think there's a lot of potential in kink, even more than in other types of sexuality, to really embrace this concept that there's the many selves inside, the many inner aspects inside, and that can, want to be healed, interact, want to love.
I had a slave, my last slave that I owned. He basically, I let him top me. And I have not let anybody top me since I lost a bet between the two football teams in Ohio and Michigan, and I didn't know Ohio had two different teams. I bet on the wrong team, and I lost. And my slave was able to top me for 24 hours, and that was crazy. But the last time, and I never went to subspace. I never, ever let my guard down. I never submitted or surrendered. But the last one, I surrendered. And it was terrifying. I know where subspace is, and I also know where subdrop is, and I'm a better dominant for it. And so many dominants, are afraid to go there because they think it might tarnish their reputation of who they are. When people found out, people said, "Oh, you just haven't found your right master." No, I needed the experience because I needed the experience to be a better master, and it changed me.
I
Pardon
agree.
me?
I agree. I agree that I'm a better dominant because I spent several years as a 24/7 slave. And there were wonderful things in that. There were terrible things in that. He had beautiful, insightful moments and guided incredible scenes, and he missed the boat totally at times and did some things that felt very hurtful to me. But I learned from both of them. The fact of the matter is I learned from what was working, and I learned from what was not working. And it helps me be a better dominant for the people that are in front of me. So absolutely having that experience. And that used to be what was called old guard training. Old guard training was you couldn't even be called a dominant. You couldn't even be called a master if you hadn't gone through being in service and being in submission to somebody who already was. So amazing.
We don't have a lot of that in the heterosexual. In the male heterosexuals, they train maybe underneath a mentor, but they really don't know the experience of what a submissive goes through, or a slave. I mean, it was an amazing process to drop down all of those walls, to allow myself to take that pain, wanting it more. I mean, I don't want to go back there. It was not my cup of tea, but it was an amazing experience, and I'm grateful for it. Absolutely grateful.
Well, I want to mention something else about surrender and submission. There are many ways to surrender and many things to surrender to. So for many years, I was almost making it a practice to have partners who were dominants and to have them surrender, but not to pain, not to strength, but to have them surrender like you might surrender to a warm ocean. That the ocean has you, that the ocean is so warm, it's so, salty, it can hold you up so much that you can finally let go. And I realized that there was a way to be the dominant that was graceful, that was like a warm sea, and that I think all of us want to surrender, but the question is, what do we want to surrender to?
Yes. I agree with you on that 100%. I've changed. I no longer have to be the center of everybody's universe. I no longer have to be the class clown, because I have been a class clown with comedy, joking, and there's a calmness and a peacefulness inside, and I could not have been this peaceful without being in the BDSM lifestyle for what I've learned from it. I mean, it was an amazing process that we go through. So can you give some advice to people that are new, that are coming into the lifestyle, to how to, protect their psyche, or other questions or other things that could help them?
I think the hardest thing, the most challenging thing when we're new to the lifestyle is to go slowly. Like the safest thing to do, really, if you're willing to be safe, what we would do is go and watch. We'd go and watch, we'd see how people played, we'd talk to people, we'd start to find out, who has good integrity, who doesn't have good integrity. We'd get a mentor, and this is not somebody that we're playing with per se. This is more like, someone who's been around, who can be kind of a friend to us, and that we can say, I'm thinking of playing with this person, what do you know about this person? And I want to say for new dominants can get sucked into submissives that are very dysfunctional. I mean, there's some beautiful submissive, gorgeous, let me just say, wonderful submissives out there. But there's also submissives who are drama queens, who have, almost to the point of emotional disorders, that can really suck a dominant dry if he doesn't know how to be discerning. And the same thing can be true for submissives. There's some wonderful dominants out there. I mean, wonderful, gracious people who want to make a difference. And there's a lot of dominants out there that can be very usury. How do you tell the difference? Well, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. And that's why you want to talk to someone who's been in the scene longer than you have. The other thing I would say to new people is, if you can't hold back, I mean, tell me, Rev Mel, how many times you've heard this from new submissives? I want to try everything. I don't have any limits. It just all sounds great.
All the time.
All the time. And
I teach at the Leerdesad, and we talk about negotiations. We talk about limits, and I pull someone on stage, and it's a thing. I tell them to tell me they have no limits. So I put them up against a pole, and I says, I'm going to blindfold you. I'm going to put a gag in your mouth, and you're going to be handcuffed, and I'm going to take a knife, and I'm going to cut you open, send your liver to Dubuque, Iowa, your heart to San Francisco, because I left my heart in San Francisco. And I says, do you have limits? And the submissive looks at me, or the volunteer, and said, yes, I have limits. Everybody has limits, but we hear it all the time.
I love that. That's so great. So, the other thing I would say is you have limits, and you can either find them the graceful way or the hard way. And they say that wisdom is we have wisdom when we learn through someone else's experience. Mm-hmm. So we can either learn through experience, which is the school of hard knocks, or we can learn through wisdom, which is learning through someone else's experience. If you're willing to be part of a group, go to munches, you can learn through other people's experiences. You can save yourself a lot of heartache. But if like me, your guidance is telling you to throw yourself in at the deep end, then what I would say to you is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for that first experience is probably going to be a hard one. And it's likely that it's going to break your heart. And forgive yourself for doing that. And you can still pick yourself up, and you can now be discerning, and you can now slow down, or as I like to say, slow the fuck down, and I mean the fuck, and really build trust with someone before you give yourself to them, or really build trust with someone before you take them on and say, I'm going to take you on as my submissive, I'm going to take you on as my slave, before you know what you're taking on.
Francesca had a very, very long weekend, and I'm going to leave this up to her. We're getting close to the end of the show, and it's up to her if she wants to go a little bit longer, maybe about 15 minutes or so. I'm having such fun with you too that I'm happy. If people are into it, I'm happy to go a little longer. If I could go either way. Remember, I'm a switch. Well, they're in the chat room. A lot of people are coming back. A lot of people are coming in, and that I keep seeing the numbers changing. So if you're not in the chat room, we're going to go on for a little bit while longer. This always happens when we have an interesting guest. We end up going, into more detail. So what did you learn personally about your BDSM experiences, about who you are, Francesca?
What have I learned about myself through BDSM? So much. I think this realm of BDSM, I love that it is this playground of possibility without shame. As long as we're being consensual, we could discover more and more about who we are and who we're not. Our limits is like, oh, I'm not that. And who we are is, oh, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I was called to that. I learned when I was a submissive that I love to serve. I love to be in devotion. I love that sense of opening my heart and adoring someone. But I also learned that I need to have trust and respect in place before I can really do that. I learned that although I don't love pain for its own sake, and pain does not transmute to pleasure for me, that I can be proud of taking pain and even want pain to show myself how strong I am. And to hopefully delight my master or dominant. I learned that I also love to guide people, that I trust myself, and I didn't know that. I didn't know when I first came into this realm that I would be trustworthy as a dominant. I was afraid that my selfish part, my needy part, would somehow feel it finally had a safe, dark container to come out and just get what I wanted now. Now it's my turn. And I thought that this, that hungry, needy thing that I do have it, would come out without any ethics. I wouldn't have ethics. I wouldn't have a container where I would know to stop. And what I found instead is that my 30 years of being a priestess held the part of me that can beat people, the part of me that could yell at people, the part of me that could take people on what could be a very painful journey, that my priestess is holding that, and that I am trustworthy. And that's what a beautiful thing to discover, that I am trustworthy. And then I would say that the thing that I recently, really only in the last year, and I've been dying to find this, but it finally came together, is I'm discovering how to use kink in a therapeutic way, and how to create those scenes that literally are therapy for people. And I knew it, like I had a sense that it was there, but I couldn't get there because there was no one to teach me, So I had to kind of stumble around for a while. But I'm delighted to say that I've gotten there, and it's a delightful zone to be in. And there's a great feeling of, a little rightgasm, that rightgasm, I was right, to feel that that's come together. I think that some of those, those are some of my favorite things that I've learned so far. I'm not done yet. I'm never done learning.
What do you think other therapists, the vanilla therapists that are not involved in BDSM, would think about this? I mean, does it really matter what they would think?
I'm very much of an advocate and a bridge builder, Rev Mel. So to me, it matters when people are prejudiced and uneducated. To me, that matters. And I think that many therapists, and I like to just say kinky and non-kinky, because when I considered myself non-kinky, I never liked the word vanilla. I like too much chocolate, so it just felt too bland for me. And I think the realm of non-kink is also wide and rich and really can be explored. But I think that people who are the non-kink aware therapists are often coming from fear and misunderstanding. And I actually do spend a certain amount of time with other therapists. I'm actually not a licensed therapist, but I'm in clinical organizations. And I spend time educating them and informing them and helping them understand, because kink can be abusive. I mean, let's be clear, it can be abusive. But so could missionary sex. Missionary sex in a marriage could still be abusive if one person's saying no and the other person's saying I don't care. That's still abusive. So it's not.
I think there's a lot of dominance out there that are. I'm talking about male and female. I'm not just putting it just on male, because I don't believe in that. But that can come from a very abusive way of treating people, and it can be abusive. If they get with the wrong submissive, they can cause a tremendous amount of damage. Little T says she is staying. She's enjoying the conversation. Cedric said, I'm hanging in for sure. I hope I got your name right this time. If I didn't, please forgive me. But please, if you're in the chat room, please write some questions out. If you have any questions burning inside of your mind that you want to know about Francesca, please type them in, and while her and I have this amazing conversation. Yeah. I finally realized why I was so tongue-tied.
Why?
Because you brought out the spirit guides around me, and they were like, it's like a light switch. And I could not think. And now I'm starting to get some bearings, because I kind of I'm sitting back and carrying on a better conversation. It was like the spirit guides went, and I'm not even going to go, leave me alone, you guys. I want to enjoy this conversation.
I think we can do both. I think we can be guided by spirit and grounded. And one of these days, you and I are going to sit down and have tea and talk more about how we do both. Or we could talk about it now. And, I'm actually happy to talk about that now, is, when we do kink as therapy, when we do kink as sacred or kink as spiritual, it adds another layer that could really bless us, heal us, but could all really throw us off too. And so how do we avoid being thrown off? How do we avoid being depleted? And some of that is little things like, I'm going to encourage you to drink a glass of water, to sip up your water. is making sure to stay in self-care in the body. Am I eating enough? Am I drinking enough? One of my other favorites, and I'm going to ask this of all of us right now, is can we feel our feet? Can I feel my feet? And the minute I ask myself or my submissive or anyone, can you feel your feet? It's like we're in our feet again, because it's like, oh, there are my feet. Oh, I'm here. I'm back. Some of us, if you might need a little more than that. Can I feel my feet? Can I feel the weight of my feet? Can I feel them pressing against the earth? All of that starts to bring our attention, our awareness down our bodies. And when we're doing a scene with someone, you know, they may fly, they may go into a trance, they may see visions. So we want to be able to invite them to breathe, nice long deep breaths. As they're breathing, invite them to gently begin to come back into their body, to feel their body, to feel the air and on their skin.
You're hypnotizing me.
You know, and then to feel our feet and to feel that we're back in our ground, that we're back fully here in the present. And, you know, and we can do that. We can balance.
I've done a lot of scenes where I've given massages to the person that I've scened with, that I topped. And I feel that connecting with them was really important. It's very important for me to connect with somebody afterwards. I do aftercare. I do take care of them. I'm a very nurturing person, and I love to be nurturing. But Cedric in the chat room said, did I say it right? Said, as a chocolate person, I do have a nay for chocolate. Vanilla is good too. When I was in DomCon, there was a group of people looking at us. Non-kink. I like that non-kink. I think I do like that. Thank you. And I got up and we were walking past, and this is when my friend Venus DeMilo was with us, and I stopped at their table and I says, all of you look like you have questions for us. And they go, yeah, what is this? This is a DomCon, you know, what's going on here? And I says, well, and what came out of my mouth was magical. And I said to them, there's not a street in the United States that someone is not being tied to a bed, blindfolded, and spanked. We're really not that much different than you are.
I love that. And I like to say to the non-kink when they're confused, I'll say that this is a whole world, this is a country. And if you've ever wanted your lover to, you know, maybe shove you against the wall and, you know, fuck you hard, or, you know, bend you over a couch and swat your bottom, or if you've just wanted someone to pick you up and throw you on the bed and hold you down, you know, you're already on the road. You're already in the kink universe. If you've, you know, tied your sweetheart, you're right, with anything, you know, with your nylons or with a silk scarf to the bedpost, you know, you're already in the world of kink. And that there's this realm of sensation that goes from sweet to savory to spicy. And I think of sweet as the tantra. You know, if we're using feathers, if we're, you know, just like blowing on our partner, if we're kissing them all over, you know, the fur, you know, there are things that we do that are just in that really sweet, and we're way and slow, and then we're in more tantra usually. And then, you know, when we start to get savory, that's maybe we're biting, maybe we're having hickeys, maybe we're holding someone down, maybe we're, you know, like that kind of rough sex, you know. And then, you know, if we start to go into the spicy, now we're actually doing a little bit more research. Now maybe we're learning how to tie people up safely. Maybe now we're not just using a spatula. We're actually going out and getting something at the local leather shop. And we're starting to take classes, and maybe now we're using electricity, or now we're using candle wax, and we're expanding our sensation, really. But the desire for sensation, the desire for our bodies to be alive and awake and experience is just human.
What do you think about the influx of people coming in from the book 50 Shades of Grey and approaching the movie coming out on February 14th? I mean, through all my classes, because my classes are geared toward new people that have come into the lifestyle, I mean, there are so many people that have read the books and that are coming in. What's your views on that? And I'll tell you my views afterwards.
Well, I think there's two things that I think of. I did read the first book. I did not read the whole series.
Did you read the whole book?
I read the whole first book. Yes, I did. I made it through the whole first book.
I
And
stopped at 220 pages. I couldn't do it.
well, one of the things that I noticed, and this was before I knew that it was a rewrite of Twilight, is before I noticed that it was female porn. So
Hmm.
in male porn, think about this. In male porn, the women are always hot, ready, and dripping. They already want to do everything, and the man never has to do anything to get her aroused. And they just want to fuck. They want to fuck immediately. Now, all the man has to do, pretty much, is drop his drawers, take out his cock, and it's on. And whether he's at, the grocery store or the spa, or whether he's at, wherever he is, if a woman sees him, she's going to want him to take out his cock, and she's going to want to do everything to it and just say, fuck me, fuck me. So in a male porn, men don't have to do anything.
Hmm.
If you read female porn, the man is mysterious and somehow wealthy. He always is drawn to her immediately. And even though she's shy and confused and doesn't really think she's all that pretty, he knows that she's the one. And he continues to get closer and closer until she doesn't know what else to do. And somehow he knows her better than she knows herself. And he can throw her down on the bed and make mad, passionate love to her, swinging between rough and hard and sweet and tender in every perfect moment without her having to say anything. And she orgasms a lot. So in female porn, women don't have to do anything. The men are wealthy, handsome, and they're mind readers. So, when I was reading the book, the biggest issue I had was not that it was about kink or that she was new to kink or, that he found someone new to kink and wanted to bring her in right away. That actually was my life story. So I didn't have any issue with that. What I had an issue with is that it was just more female porn where it has so many assumptions that he's going to be a better mind reader, that he's going to know every way to delight her body, that she doesn't have to really talk about it, and that, he's handsome and wealthy. It was formulaic, basically. That was my biggest concern with continuing to build the fantasy. But the fantasy is out there, whether it's Prince Charming or Sleeping Beauty or something else, or Twilight or something else, beautiful creatures, the fantasy is out there, that somehow we're going to be found by that right guy and not have to do any of our own personal work.
So our Prince Charming, but this Prince Charming was a narcissistic sociopath in the book, I gather. But I think that it is, a lot of people are going to come into the lifestyle. A lot of people are curious.
Yeah.
And the ones that go past the curiosity are going to stay. And they will soon become some of the leaders in our community if they are taught properly. And I think that it's just a turning point or an entry place for people to come into BDSM.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not mad at it. I really don't have a problem with it.
Oh, I'm mad at it. I wrote a book. I wish my book sold as much.
But to me, I think what I hear you saying is that it will raise awareness. Mm-hmm. And if it's going to raise awareness, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to talk about it more. It's an opportunity to educate more. I actually think of it as kind of a blessing because it's going to be on all these radio shows. It's going to be all on these TV shows, not just yours, but ABC, CBS, NBC, and there's really an opportunity to have those who are not kinky, ideally, understand more about how wonderful kink is, how safe kink is or can be, how normal kink is, really.
So it's made us less of a taboo.
Right.
Is that a good thing? Because, in our community.
Well, I do feel that we are a lot of rebels. That when people come into kink, they're like, I'm kinky, I'm perverted, and there's a lot of, I wear leather, and I think there is a little bit of a, wait, I don't just want everybody to do this. I don't want what I have to be normal. But on the other hand, if it's normal, then we have more rights. If it's normal, then we have more understanding. If it's normal, then when kids are wanting to experiment in high school, they can get information more easily to make sure that they're safe. Mm-hmm. So I personally think the benefits of having it be normalized outweigh that I'm going to lose a little bit of my rebel status.
have you come out to your family? Does your family know that you're involved in BDSM?
Uh, you know, I haven't necessarily sat down with my dad and said, Dad, I think we need to have a talk. It's the kinky talk. You know, I don't think I've had that. I don't think I've done that, but I'm out on Facebook, and and I have my radio shows and my classes, and I'll tell you, it's been a mixed bag. So that, some parts of my Midwestern family,
Where in the Midwest?
Wisconsin and Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Jeez. Sorry.
Is that part of my family has said, we just don't understand you. Like, we love you, but we understand you. Part of the family has been even more distant and not actually wanted to talk to me. Part of the family is like, live and let live. So there's been a whole range. But when I started, teaching sacred kink around the world, and it was listed, if you look up my name, you'll see it, and you'll see, YouTube's on it, etc. I was actually kicked out of a spiritual organization. So
wow.
a goddess spiritual organization, when they found out that I was teaching, mind you, sacred kink, they actually changed their bylaws to say no one can be in our organization that is involved with kink, and that they literally were saying to the Northern California community, because this is an international spiritual organization, they told the Northern California community that they would kick out the entire Northern California community if they didn't kick me out, and they wouldn't give me any chance to talk to them at all and explain my position and how I approach this and what it means to me. Nothing. So,
wow.
Yeah, so I've definitely had at times I would say kind of a price when I've come out of any closet. And just between you and me, I think human beings always have one more closet to come out of. I think we have those things that we tell people, and we have those things that we don't tell people, and that we're afraid to even see. And I would say every time I've come out of a closet, there's been a price to pay. Mm-hmm. But every time that I have come out of that closet, I've come home to myself in another way. Like, I love me more, and I'm closer to me. So I'm willing to pay that price, although it at times has been difficult.
Yeah, I have a daughter, so I keep she knows about it. My brothers and my sister, they know about it. My father's 92. He wouldn't remember it tomorrow anyways. But I have 2 Facebook accounts. One is for my kink, and one is non-kink. And I don't mix the 2 together. And because of the respect for my daughter, because it would harm her.
And my son, he rolls his eyes. He's much more conservative than I am, and he rolls his eyes. But my son is he's 22, mm-hmm. And one day he came to me and he said, "And Mom, all of my friends are kinky." He's not kinky. He does not identify that way. Mm-hmm. But he said, I don't think I should judge. He goes, my friends are queer, they're kinky, people get to do what feels right to them. So even though he's conservative for himself, he doesn't want to judge for others.
Do you think that the younger generation, we're talking about the 20, 30-year-olds, look at things differently than, but I'm 62, so my generation is a little bit more closed. My father's generation is really closed. I mean, the younger generation seems to have a better grasp on all of this. I mean, there's some amazing young BDSM kids that come in that are amazing, that are in their 20s, into our lifestyle.
Okay, try this on for size. Okay. Every decade, the next generation has to individuate. They have to find themselves as different than their parents, right? That's what we do every generation. I'm not like my parents. And I'm just going to go back to the 60s. In the 60s, it was free love.
Oh, yeah, so that was me.
We're not like those conservative 1950s people. We're going to do free love. Then you get to the 70s, and now people are experimenting with swinging. People are swinging, and Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice was a famous film. Then you get to the 80s, and people are starting to have open relationships, and now, that's an open relationship thing. You get to the 90s, and you start to have polyamory. Mm-hmm. When you get to the 2000s, you start to have what I would call erotic community. You get Burning Man, you get a lot of people going to festivals and events where they're friends and they see each other again and again, and they're erotic with each other in this community setting. Then you get to kind of the late 2000s, 2010, and the next generation, my son's generation, so many of them identify as kinky and queer. Kinky and queer. And I think that that's how they're individuating from their parents, you know, who maybe were polyamory or maybe were something else.
But they're also changing the language. Queer doesn't mean what queer meant before.
Right.
I mean, the whole language is changing. I mean, I go on FetLife and I see the things when they identify as this, and it blows me away.
And you know, I think it's what I'm fascinated by is what are their kids going to individuate from? Like, are we going to go back to a conservative cycle? Because, you know, I don't know yet. You know, we'll find out in another 10 years or so. But I think every 10 years there needs to be a new sort of sense of identification. But yeah, queer is very fascinating because it used to mean gay, and now it means a gender fluidity. And you know, I think that's very fascinating. You know, because you know there was women's liberation, and women were trying to stand up and say we get to be women, and women get to be seen as equal as men. And now in this generation, they're saying, well, we don't even want a label. I want to be male, I want to be female, and I want it to be beyond labels. I want the right to be whatever combination of gender I want to be today. And I think maybe it's kind of a swing, a response to even the fighting, you know, between the masculine and the feminine that was a lot of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s have been a lot of the war between the sexes. And maybe that's, you know, this generation's response to the war is say, I'm leaving the war.
This generation is so many are into having these poly relationships that are working. I mean, it's amazing. Some of the older generation, they're trying poly, and it's not working because we still have some of the same values that we think that we had. But watching these youngsters, I just had someone on my show last week, Rye, who, you know, is in this open poly relationship with 3 other women, and he's so okay with everything. I mean, it just blew me away.
You know, I think that as a counselor, I would say as a counselor, I see people of every generation. And I think there's more information out there, certainly. You know, 10, 20 years ago, the word polyamory was actually coined by a friend of mine. Morning Glory Zell Ravenheart actually coined the word polyamory, so it didn't really exist until the 90s. And now there's all these books, you know, Tristan Taormino opening up and this and that. You know, there's so many books that you could find, and there's groups that you could go to talk. So I think there's a lot more support nowadays. And there's not the same shame if you want to choose it as a lifestyle, especially in California.
So what's next? What's next? Where are we going?
You know, I would have to say, I don't know. I don't know. You know, because what I'm looking at now are people in the 20s. And I personally have friends that are from, you know, 20s to 70s. I love being a very multi-generational person. And, you know, I would have to be looking at, you know, the 14-year-olds and the 15-year-olds and really trying to assess what they're thinking. I actually have interviewed a couple of them now that I think of that. And I think that the 14, 15-year-olds are still on the kinky queer. They're still on that wavelength. And so we're going to, I would have to say that we're going to see that continue to expand. I think we're going to see more kinky queer rights coming into the next, you know, 10 years or so, more research. There's a lot more of the people in their 20s that are doing kink research, 20s, 30s doing kink research. So I think we actually are going to see a lot more respect and a lot more normalization. And then who knows what'll be after that.
Well, in the chat room, Cedric and Little T are talking and carrying on a great, wonderful conversation about, you know, that they're kinky but they're not kinky. And Cedric followed us, came into the chat room by seeing one of the postings, and so they're talking about a swirl of chocolate and vanilla with a swirl of chocolate, and all sorts of things that they're experiencing. But I need to ask you some of these questions because I ask these questions on almost all of my shows. Are you ready for a little tea for me to ask the questions? Okay, to get some humor in here. So,
Right.
How old were you when you lost your virginity?
20.
Oh, you were a late bloomer too. Is it the Sicilian family upbringing?
Maybe it is.
Are you bisexual?
Yes.
When did you discover that about yourself?
I think I'm still discovering it, but I would say that in my 20s, I started to notice that every now and then there'd be a woman who just really drew me, and that I really felt like I was in love with. And I eventually studied with bodyelectric.org, which is a wonderful, wonderful organization, and did a 3-day and then a 5-day intensive with women to get clear on my relationship with women. Was I gay? Was I bi? Was I something else? Was I confused? Where was I? And what I noticed after that intensive was that in a room of 26 women, I was really only extremely drawn to 2. And out of the 2 that I was extremely drawn to, as I got to know them, 1 dropped out because I'm a sapiosexual. I really love intelligence, and I felt that she wasn't going to be able to share that with me. And the other one had so many wounds, and I felt that it wouldn't serve her to just enter in from a sexual access point. But the thing that I looked at that workshop, at that intensive, was if I was in a room of 26 men, I might have the same experience. That out of 26 men, there might only be 2 men that really felt like they were intriguing to me. So I was able to see that I had pursued men more often, but that at the core, I think I'm also picky sexual.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can understand that one. I think that comes with age.
So I think that was my process.
Well, Little T in the chat room says, yes, ma'am, ask away. She wants me to ask the questions.
Okay.
And she goes, woohoo. She says, come and visit me, Francesca, LOL. Okay. She's on the East Coast.
Oh, sure. If I'm invited and, I have a living room to teach in, I'm happy to fly anywhere.
Well, you should come down to Los Angeles and teach at the Lair or at some of the dungeons here. Have you ever had anal sex, and do you enjoy it?
I have had anal sex. I don't think that I have enjoyed it yet. And one of my dearest friends, when I explained to her what my dominant was doing to have anal sex with me, which was basically, brace yourself, Dorothy. It was. She was like, "Oh, honey, you have not really had anal sex." And then she explained to me about being lubricated and turned on and this and that, and feeling like you were just on the edge of I have to have, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like it could have potential. So have I ever had anal sex that I enjoyed? Not yet. Could there be potential? Sure.
Listen very carefully, Michael. I'm going to tell you how to do it slowly. Okay, Michael? Lots of lube. Lots of lube. Do a lot of caressing, a lot of foreplay. Okay, lube it, and then just put the tip in very lightly, just very lightly, and then let her press into you slowly until it feels better. Let her do the pressing. And that will work, Michael. Understand? Oh, this has been wonderful. I don't even want to go, but I think we should. You've had such a long weekend. And this has been, so how can people get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me by emailing erospriestess@gmail.com. That's Eros, E-R-O-S, priestess@gmail.com.
Let's show your website while we're doing it.
Francesca Gentille, my website. You can get a hold of me there.
Let me get it open. There we go. Let me show the website.
Open me up, yes.
That is the website?
That is. And if you Google Francesca Gentille, you can find me. And I would love to talk with you. I actually would love to give our listeners, those who are interested, a free 30 to 45-minute phone consult. So if there's more questions that you have, and I'm happy to have you contact me and just say that you saw me on the Rev Mel Show, and you can receive that free 30 to 45-minute consult.
Oh, I think what I'll do is do a posting afterwards and let people know on TSR Studios. Dr. Ruth Rev Mel. I don't have the accent. She opened up a lot of doors for us.
Yes, she did.
You know, she opened up a lot of doors. But any regrets?
Any regrets? You know, not off the top of my head. I think that I love myself. I think that's an important thing, to love and forgive ourselves, and that if I ever get to regret, and I'm sure there might be something, then I try to say, how can that regret teach me about what I want to do in the future, and not just to stay in that place of regretting. You know, I think unkindness, any time that I've been unkind to another person or broken an agreement, I think I would say regrets there. But then I want, you know, how can I move forward to be more kind and have greater integrity?
This has been wonderful. I have thoroughly enjoyed this show. I don't want it to end, but I know that you've had a really long weekend. You've been teaching. Where is your next stop in teaching? Where will you be at?
I'm going to be in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm starting to teach Tantric Kink with Caroline Carrington. We're going to have a full day. We call it Oh God, Tantric Power and Surrender. And we're also doing a Black Diamond Puja. So combining the East Indian sacred puja format, which is very sexy, with some of the concepts in kink and power exchange with devotion. And then I'm also planning to come down to LA and teach a sensual healing man course. And it's actually training women and women professionals, pro-doms, women erotic educators, etc., how to train men to become erotic healers for women.
Oh, I like that. I have a couch. You're welcome to it.
Oh, very nice.
Always have a couch. Always have a couch.
Very wonderful. And you know, I just want to also say that it's been such a delight to be with a Sicilian sister, and you know, to share that sense of both spiritual and erotic and heaven and earth and rar and sweetness all together. And you're a wonderful interviewer and just a delightful human being. Thank you.
You blew me away in the beginning. I was tongue-tied. It was just, you know, those spirit guides were all over the place, and I could not formulate a sentence, and all I could do, that's why I sat back and I did not interrupt, but, you know, I know. Little T says, all right, that's awesome, a phone consultant. She's on. Little T is absolutely wonderful, marvelous, such a wonderful good friend, gives the most warmest hugs. Little T says, great show, Rev Mel. Love your guest. Have a great rest of the night, everyone. And Cedric, she said, nice to talk to. But I want to thank you so much, Francesca, for coming on to the show. This has been an amazing experience. And when we do this, credits don't hang up. We'll wait until don't go away yet, okay?
I won't go away.
So,
ciao.
So I want to thank everyone for watching the show, and please tell your friends about it. Send them the link to it's always archived on TSRnetwork and on YouTube and all over the place. So please come back to the shows. We have only one show tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, which is Naughty and Nice with Miss Cassie, and she's having a kinky comedian on, so it should be absolutely hilarious. Great energy. So I want to thank you all for watching the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex and where we are changing the world one vanilla at a time. Thank you so much.